Hello, friends, and welcome to the Alive and Kicking Show. We have a super awesome episode today. I'm so excited to be talking to the amazing Sarah Breskman Cosme. If you don't know who she is a master hypnotist, a level 3 QHHT practitioner, and a best-selling author of some favorites like The Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis, The Hypnotist Journey, The Secrets of the Sphinx, and A Hypnotist Journey from the Trail to the Star People. These books are amazing, life-changing books. So that's a quick overview of Sarah Breskman Cosme. And most people listening have probably heard of you and probably know a lot about you. But for the 3 people out there that don't know anything about you, can you give us a quick little intro to who you are and what you're up to?
Well, that's super sweet. I am a hypnotist, like you said, and basically what I do every day is I take people to the deepest level of trance and then access their higher consciousness. And that's how I research, that's how I write my books, and it's really exciting what I find out, and I just love speaking about it. I speak all over the world, which is super exciting and fun for me, and that's basically in a nutshell what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've been lucky enough to, attend many of your events and your seminars and your retreats and your workshops. And, they're very enlightening and always take me to new places. But what I really appreciate about your style is you have this genuine curiosity about life and the universe and all these things. And it really makes your events comfortable and it makes them fun and engaging. And I think that the way you tackle this and go at this, because some of these things are heavy. I mean, you uncover all sorts of wild things about the universe and life and reality, and but you do it with this sort of childlike enthusiasm and curiosity that I think we should all have, and I think you're really helping to bring that out of people and make this journey fun. So, yeah, how does that play into what you do?
Thanks so much. I mean, I'm just really, really curious. I want to find out all the answers to all these questions. I feel like we're just all in this together and there's nothing special about me. I really genuinely am just super curious. I want to know because it helps me a lot. Some of this information I find out is so helpful that I think, oh my gosh, it's like exciting for me to share it because I know that it would greatly affect somebody else. And I feel really good when I can help other people in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to a lot of what we do here with Alive and Kicking is exploring the mysteries of the universe and time and reality, but also bringing it back home to, okay, how can we integrate this into our lives? Like, it's fun to go in these far out adventures and, like you talk about, in depth about, alien and extraterrestrial life and about, the history of humans on Earth and all these amazing things. But how can we integrate this into our life? Like, what good does that do for the average person? And I think that's where another field of what you focus on is like, communicating with your higher self and things of this nature to where, I call the higher self like the search engine for the soul. It's kind of like ChatGPT for your consciousness. You can ask questions and get answers. And that's, you introduced me to a lot of these things, and you and my lovely wife, and she introduced me to you. And, so for the average Joe like me that, doesn't know anything about this world, I was able to use these things as practical applications into my life. And, so could you kind of talk a little bit about like the connection to the higher self and how this can benefit you in this world?
Yeah, I think before I started finding out all this information, life had a totally different meaning. I mean, I just thought the meaning of life before I learned this stuff was to make a lot of money, have a family, and just do the things that society told me to do. But then ever since making a deeper connection with like the unseen world or my higher self or like spirit guides and magic, I've learned that the world is actually magical. It's taken on a different meaning. And there's so many layers to reality and so much awe and wonder and creation and like learning how to use my own innate abilities, like learning how to make myself more of like a godlike being is so exciting. So it's really changed the way I see life and changed my perception of what the meaning of life is. So I think it's really like tuning into those magical realms that gives you a whole different meaning on your life.
Yeah, that's amazing you said that. I mean, I liken it a lot of times to like, we're a house with all the light switches turned off. And like, as you go through this journey, you're like going through and you're turning on the light switches. And as you turn them on, you see more things and you realize your true power. Like, humans are freaking powerful, but oftentimes we're told we're not, or we have imposter syndrome, or we beat ourselves up. And the things you do really highlight how powerful humans are. And you're giving people these tools to explore, you know, the gifts that we have as humans, our abilities as humans, and also like going into past lives, I think is very exciting, because then you can see, you know, oh my God, like I was, you know, I know everybody always wants to go to a past life and be like a king or a princess or something. But, you know, you've had so many lives that there's probably a good chance that in a past life you were this very significant person, or had some special abilities. And to be able to see that, I think will help you realize in this lifetime, okay, well, if I did it back then, I can do it now. I'm still the same human vessel, you know. So it's really exciting. You know, I wasn't one that believed in reincarnation until I really got into your work, and really, you know, my wife does past life regression as well, and really made me realize, oh my God, not only have I had past lives, but everybody has, you know. And not only did we have one or two or three, we've probably had dozens or hundreds. And then even off this planet, we probably had, you know, many, many lives in other, you know, energy systems and life forms. So like, now that we've gone here with the conversation, I would love to hear from you. Like, I've heard so many of your stories, but is there anything that stands out from you? You know, you've had so many, you know, clients and so many experiences over the years. Like, is there anything that stands out as like, oh my God, when I heard the person say this, or that just blew my mind?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things. I
Yeah.
mean, what I find really fascinating is that most of the time our higher selves are leaving us clues as to where we lived, what we used to do, and we can actually like find people that we used to live with in a different lifetime. Like, one of the most really interesting sessions I had was this woman came in for her session, and she was a young woman, like in her 20s. And she regressed back to this lifetime where she was a man, and he had these sons and they loved each other very much. And he passed. And she realized that these sons she had, which were little in that lifetime, are now fully grown and they're still alive and they live in California. And her high
Wow.
self told her to go to California, and they gave her the specific location in the town where her sons from that lifetime live, and to go meet them and to go share information about the father that she was in a past life. No, I just thought that was so fascinating, because a lot of times we leave ourselves clues, and we also leave ourselves houses. Like, a lot of times you're drawn to the same location, same house as where you've lived before. And when you get there, it feels like home, or you're in like a specific town because it helps trigger the remembrance of where you lived before. I mean, it's so interesting. And right now, what we're doing is we're activating this dormant DNA within ourselves. That there have been bloodlines, of course, like, you know, there's a lot of talk about the spiritual bloodline of like Christ and Mary Magdalene and some of these key players. But what people don't really realize is that we all have a spiritual like bloodline, if you want to call it that. So say you lived as like a Native American, and in your tribe, you were able to harness the power of certain crystals, because a lot of indigenous cultures were directly linked to specific extraterrestrials. So it ran in your genetic bloodline. Now, if you've had a lifetime as a person that was like this, that creates a spiritual bloodline. So our spiritual bloodlines are starting to activate right now, giving us like abilities and information that has been really dormant. And the reason behind this is because the consciousness is starting to reach a point where we can start accessing these things again. So when I'm really trying to find like ancient clues or ancient information, the higher self keeps telling me, oh, yes, it's stored in people. It's in their subconscious memories, and it's being activated right now. All they have to do is like hear about some of this stuff, or go to one of these old, like, you know, locations that have specific energy, or is located on a specific energetic grid, and it activates this dormant spiritual bloodline. So it's not just the genetic bloodline, that's starting to become activated, bringing back people's memories. It's the spiritual bloodline. I find that really fascinating. It's like, where you lived and what you did actually does really make a difference.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, that's amazing. So it also paints a picture that these lifetimes aren't just one-offs, that you're kind of building a grand body of work, and that it's almost like continuous in a way. And you can, using past life regression, it becomes more of a tool to kind of go into your past lives and find out, okay, what overlap is there? Like, what clues can I get? What connection can I make that will point me in the right direction in this life? Almost like this is just another level in the same game. It's like it's a continuation, like another chapter in your overall book of life, and that you're building a full body of work instead of these just being little mini games or one-offs and kind of pointless activities. This is going somewhere. How exciting is that? And I think everybody can agree that at some point in your life you've been drawn to a particular place or location or person, and to think that that's part of that's part of your overall story, that you are being pulled in these particular places for a reason. And then it's almost like like an escape room. You're looking for clues, not trying to escape in a nefarious way, but like if you think about an escape room, it's for fun. It's for learning and adventure. And there's clues embedded in there that you're supposed to find and decode these clues to, go to the next level of the game.
yeah, it's so interesting because what I've learned is that you think that your soul is unending. In a sense, it is, but your soul actually has a birth, a life, and then a process where it goes back into source. So just like you have, like, everything is a reflection of everything else. You have like a birth, a life, and then a death where you merge back into source. So does your soul. So your soul comes to actually like live a certain life, and then it merges. Your soul's on a certain journey. And so, yes, you're like building all these experiences for your soul. And when your soul reaches that pinnacle, or where it's transitioned and it's ready, it then basically goes through a death process and merges back with source, and then starts all over again for a new expansion, new growth, a new lesson. So it's really interesting that your soul's going through this too.
Yeah. I mean, people don't really think about that. They think about, like I said, it's this eternal, energy source. And in a way it is.
It
But
is.
it also has its own lifetime, like everything goes in cycles. So it has a lifetime. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but it's not finite, because even in the end, it just, reabsorbs back into source, and it lives eternally and, back in the collective with source, it seems. But
Yeah.
then, then that's not the end of it, because then you come back around for another go, because the more you repeat, the next time you're going to have new adventures and new experiences, you're going to learn more. And it's just this constant evolution of source, it seems. And that we're just these, like, little fingers of God that are out here having these adventures and doing all this learning, so we can feed that information back up to source. And, the more adventures we have and the more curious we are. I think it was actually you at the Jupiter retreat that said, if you're curious about the universe becomes curious about you. And that always stuck with me, because, like, it really does seem like you can just put your head down and go through life and not look around, and that's fine. You can get to the end of the level the same way. But, just like in Super Mario, for example, you can hop around, find the hidden things and find the clues and find the hidden levels and the little hidden worlds and everything, and have more fun. And it seems like the more curious you are about life, the more curious you are about the universe, it starts giving you more. It's like, oh, if you think that's cool, check this out, right?
Yeah, it definitely works with you. And it is like an initiation process. Once you start becoming curious, then you enter into the initiation process, and the universe responds. Then it starts sending you clues. And then as you follow those clues, the deeper into this game you go, and the universe keeps responding to what you're searching for by searching for things within you. It's really an interesting, like, method. It's so sought, it's so designed and powerful in the design of this, game and universe. It's really magical.
And so when people say everything's done for a reason, or there's a purpose behind everything, that's what this explains, is that in the moment you don't get what the purpose is, but there is a grand purpose. There is a grand design. And, I remember a lot of people look at you as sort of the carrying on the torch from Dolores Cannon's work. You're kind of in the same overall style that she did, and a lot of the information that comes through your clients and through you is similar to, it's almost like you're picking up where she left off. And I remember listening to her talk about how, they would give her a lot, like meaning they as in, the higher intelligences and consciousnesses would give her a lot of information, then let her digest it and kind of let it process. And then they'd be like, okay, you're caught up. Here's some more. And they would like dump a lot more on her. Do you kind of see that? How like, with your clients, you'll have certain topics that seem to be coming through. And as you process that, you write your books and you do your talks about it, it kind of gets to a certain, okay, now we've done that. Now let's move on to the next topic. Do you see like these recurring themes coming out?
All the time. A lot of the time when it starts to come out, I don't really understand it. I don't really know how to digest it. It's funny because it really does take me a while. Like, for instance, it was coming through a lot about the nature of our reality and how everything that is really around us is like this dark, muddled blackness. And it's through our perception that we actually create the reality around us. And that you can actually see this because if you are driving and you're zoning out and you're not paying attention, all the cars will start to become like the same tone, the same color. So you literally can prove it to yourself that you're creating your reality through your eyes and the filter within your pineal gland from this. And as soon as your conscious mind realizes that all the cars are the same color, you'll instantly start to see a different color. It's like you're constantly creating, but there's nothing really around you. And then it's really fascinating and really hard for me to understand that where we're standing is like the densest part of this energy. Like we're not actually standing on anything. And that like when you say you were to go to like the edge of what you can see, like your mind will generate more landscape. But there are entrances and like islands and like land masses that we don't have on the map that are literally there. We just don't know about them, but they're physically there. And sometimes they're cloaked or there's like some sort of web of protection over them so people can't see them and tamper with them. But some of these land masses, like on our physical reality, still have like dragons or like other beings. It's really interesting because if groups like really get to know who they are and start ascending and becoming very kind and very spiritually advanced, and they become protected almost because they are the design that the universe wants. And so as you continue to do this, you become almost like the best of the best, and becoming one with the oneness enables you to get a different type of protection and different abilities from the universe than if you weren't on that type of spiritual journey. It actually gives you more like power to go inside and do this shadow work and work on yourself. It gives you like an advantage that people don't really realize. I thought that was really interesting that people get preferential treatment, actually, like if they do work on themselves, because it's the design that the universe wants most.
Huh. Wow. Wow. So almost as if this is like a free will simulation of sorts. And when you get to a certain like level of sophistication, or maybe you hit this tipping point where source has its own kind of, what it's judging reality by. And it's like, okay, y'all have created a great avatar or a great environment or a great learning, experience here. I'm going to encapsulate this and protect it from maybe the lower, I would say lower developmental like grades, so say like, maybe they've graduated to like college level and source is like, okay, I like what you guys are doing. Y'all are doing great work here. I want to kind of protect y'all because maybe the children that aren't as developed, I don't want them to tamper or mess with this because it's going so good. Right. And
Yeah.
maybe like, so like Avalon, I know that a lot of your new information's coming up about Avalon. Most people think that this is some, mythological place. It doesn't really exist. And I think people think that because it has some of these like more, spiritual type elements, dragons and fairies and things of that nature that we don't think are real. But so many people have experienced these. And even in past lives, they've experienced lives as being fairies or being gnomes or, or seen dragons in a previous life. So it's almost as if Avalon is real. It's just encapsulated, maybe. It's protected, like you were talking about. So we can't directly see it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. There's a lot of things we can't see. I can't see the bacteria on my arm, but it's there, you know?
It's a really good point. Yeah, it's really interesting. And it seems like there's so many different realms or what people call Avalon. There's like the fairy realm that some people call Avalon. There's an actual place in the UK that some people call Avalon. There was a place that was totally hidden by mists where the women of Avalon would do a lot of their sacred ceremonies, and even King Arthur and Merlin would use that place because it was so powerful and it had portals that allowed a person to enter into other realms, what you would call like other realms that were almost like extraterrestrial, and even the Middle Earth that Christopher Tolkien wrote about. And it's really fascinating because there's so many different layers that they understood of their reality, just like there are layers that we can't see. But as far as the fairy realm, it exists. It exists like very close to the spirit realm. It's about like a foot and a half off the ground if you were to measure it. And it's very much there, and you can perceive it if you have like the right sort of consciousness. And it's really interesting because you can allow yourself to start to see fairies and see that realm just by working on yourself and starting to raise your frequency and vibration. Just really mainly using love and play and doing things like that helps you raise your frequency. When you focus on love and raise your frequency, it actually creates this lightness within yourself, and you can pop up above the frequency of others, and other people wouldn't even be able to perceive you if you were to really cultivate this and focus on popping yourself up out of the frequency. It's how some people are able to make themselves invisible. They can actually do this with their mind and pop themselves up. But you could pop yourself into the frequency or the dimension of the fairy realm if you worked on this. But there was like a veil, and that realm became hidden because it was an agreement, because there was too much destruction, and humans at the time were tampering with and harming these creatures. So it's completely hidden from sight, but they're very much real. And they come in and out of our dimension all the time. And I was so curious about that. I was like, why would fairies, if they have their own realm, why would they come into our dimension? And they said there's more growth here, and it actually helps their evolution if they come and help us. It's really interesting because fairies, I didn't understand this, but they create this dust, like pixie dust.
Mm-hmm.
But what that really is, according to the fairies, is it's created from the particles of when they experience intense joy. When they experience intense joy, that creates like a frequency and almost like a dust. So if you go outside and you start to, if all you have to do is really deeply respect nature, it's all you have to do. It's like first step. Go outside, deeply respect nature, and send some love to a plant or something, with really pure intentions, and ask for the fairies to sprinkle you with this dust. They can sprinkle you with the particles of their joy, and people do actually feel this, and it helps them. It creates almost like a joyful experience within them. And what's interesting is if you start to cultivate a relationship with the fairy realm, it can really help your expansion. It can help you in so many ways because these fairies are very ancient. And so unlike humanity that keeps evolving, fairies don't really need to keep evolving in the same way. They haven't changed their shape, and they're so incredibly ancient. And their knowledge is so wise, but in a sense, we are very much connected to them. And that gap between the fairies and humanity is starting to like close, and we're actually starting to merge our reality in a sense with theirs. Especially as the consciousness keeps raising on this planet, a lot of people will start to see fairies and start to be able to connect with them if they continue to raise their consciousness and focus on really loving and focus on loving nature, then they will.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that just shines such a different light on fairies, and even explains like fairy dust. I mean, I've heard that word before, pixie dust. I never even thought to, explore what is that? Where does that come from? So many things in our modern culture like have these ancient roots that we don't take the time to trace it back to find out where they came from. So how exciting is that? You can literally go out in nature, just create some joy, and even just ask, for the fairies to just sprinkle some joyous fairy dust on you. I mean, that's amazing. It also, suggests that they're invested in this physical world of ours. Like you said, they don't need our physical world necessarily, but it's almost like they use it the same way we use it. It's like this training grounds of sorts, and you can learn a lot here. It's a great place for learning, and it's so fascinating, this connection between these higher dimensional beings like fairies and extraterrestrials, that they seem invested in this place that we're existing in. Like this is important. It seems that the human is important, and it seems this physical world is important, not just to us but to others. I find
Yeah.
that very fascinating.
We're all so connected. Everything we do affects everything else. So every other being in this universe understands that what's happening with us is affecting them too. Like on a different level, us in a different level, that's like a higher level, wanted to actually move into another phase of their evolution, but they felt very stuck. And that's part of the reason why the experiment started. It was so that a lower level, focused in the 3D, very physical level, could really experiment and see how they could go so low in their consciousness to becoming so high in their consciousness. It's really an experiment of like learning to let go, shed all your fears, and learning to cultivate like power within yourself. What's really interesting is when I ask the fairy realm or these fairies, like, what kind of advice, could you give, humanity so that we could connect with you and really help our ascension? And they always say to go outside under the moon with only natural light, no like artificial light. You can use fire if you want to, but to start singing again and dancing under the moonlight, they said that will help connect them to you and help you start to regain that ancient bond with yourself, the fairies, and nature. There's something about singing and dancing under the moonlight that has profound effects. It actually helps start to activate your dormant spiritual bloodline, because all the ancient cultures did this. That's why if you look at all the ancient cultures, you'll see that it's really interesting. But like in the Middle East and in the Pacific Islands, they use dances where people shake their hips. And that was, through the use of religions trying to dominate and control the population, that was hidden and taken away and saw as sinful. But shaking the hips is actually very profound and healing, because what's happening is when you put your bare feet on the earth under the moonlight, you're actually shaking out any excess energy that you don't need and connecting with the earth in a very powerful way and activating all your chakras. It's like one of the reasons why in the ancient Egyptian temples, they used a tool called the sistrum, and they would shake it. So by shaking it, it would activate the temples. This is the same thing that you can so easily do for free by shaking your hips, both men and women, is it's activating your chakras, and it's aligning you to like have a lot of ancient power. And especially because you're using all the elements, you're grounding, you're under the moonlight, and you're connecting to the cosmos in that way.
Wow. So you're turning yourself into a little shaker, a spiritual shaker. That's amazing, because like it seems like what you're describing is sort of like a Kundalini type of an experience. And like, that's this, where you're basically, turning on all of your energy centers, and you're connecting and activating all your chakras all the way through and connecting to a higher source. And, a lot of times in our modern culture, this happens spontaneously or happens catastrophically, as in
Yeah.
my situation, it was very catastrophic. But there is a natural method to do this. And it seems like that's what you are discovering, is like so much of this stuff was laid out for us back in the day, and it's been suppressed or twisted over time. But it all goes back to just connecting with nature. And there's this sort of natural, ability that humans have to fully activate themselves and connect to nature and to a higher source. But we have been, it's been hidden from us, it's been taken from us, and it's been, a lot of times, it's almost the exact reverse of what we're told. I mean, there's so many things that I'm discovering that if I do the opposite of what I'm told, I'm actually going to get closer to where I need to be. And it's funny because, like you say, like they tell you, oh, don't shake your hips. That's a bad thing to do. When in reality, that's the exact thing that you're supposed to do. So I find that so fascinating. And I mean, like, I know that you, with a lot of your research, went down the path of Atlantis and how they, kind of tragically ended their civilization by, too many experiments and getting too technologically big-headed and getting away from nature and away from source. And then it seems like, with your Avalon work, it's kind of taking you full circle back to, okay, here's, like, this is what Atlantis did wrong, and this is what Avalon's teaching us to do right. And it goes back to connecting with nature and connecting with something bigger and higher than yourself.
But what's so fascinating to me is, and what I started to learn is, everything we're really searching for, like, is actually ourselves. And I started to see that there were so many patterns about, like, what I was looking for, because when I was working on my book, A Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis, I had this client, Jen, who in her past life memories remembered giving information to this woman who she lived with in Atlantis, and she took this information to this island. And I found out that this island was a place called Brazil, which is really interesting, that was destroyed by the use of extraterrestrial technology. There were these people that after Atlantis was destroyed, they could feel the pull of the red crystals. And so they could feel that there were red crystals being utilized on this place called Brazil, which is like located about 100 miles, I guess, off the coast of Ireland. And so this woman that Jen recounted went to this place, used these crystals, had many generations after her. And then when these invaders came that wanted to recreate Atlantis and wanted the crystals for power and control, they destroyed everybody on that island. And extraterrestrials stepped in. They actually intervened and destroyed that whole place. And although there are still tunnel systems that are still there, and there are still treasure and stuff there, and it will rise up from its hidden location in the future. But after this island was destroyed, there were some survivors that left and went to Avalon, and then they carried with them the crystals and information that went to my next client, past life memories, who came to me for this book, which is really interesting. And it's like, as I put all these pieces together, I'm like, this is so funny how it's like just finding its way back to me, because I never searched for it. I had no idea that I would meet my next hypnosis subject, Christy, and that she would bring me all this information, because Christy had no idea either. And it's really wild to me, because it's almost like, is everything just like, I guess we're all keys of this puzzle, and like, it's just like when you go to a place like Egypt and you see all these signs and everything looks like it's pointing you in some secret direction. It's like, you are the key. You are what unlocks everything there in Egypt. Everything in Egypt is working with you. It's working with your own, like, crown chakra, your own energy systems, and you're the one that unlocks it. It's really just interesting how it all works.
Yeah, that is. I mean, sometimes for me to make sense of it in my head, I look at it like, so say you're playing like an arcade game, and then there's a character in the game, and then you're outside the game playing it. So that character in the game, he has free will, and he can run around do his thing, but then you're playing the game, so you're outside the game. And you're, every once in a while, you're like, okay, no, go over here. No, go over here. Okay, now jump on your, unlock this. So you're kind of guiding your other character. So you are both of them. You're the one in the game, and you're the one outside of the game. So it's not like weird. It's not like, oh, they're impeding on my free will, because it's like, no, that is you. You're both of the players, the one into the game, the one outside the game. And you realize, oh, I'm guiding myself.
Yes.
So like you said, it all comes back to you. You're the higher self and the lower self, and you're guiding yourself from outside the game and inside the game, and you're playing it together. And then, on top of that, there's all these other people watching the game. It's like a whole, audience. and that's so fascinating, how many layers there are to it, but how much you are a layered individual, how many different aspects of the game that you are playing and generating, and it's so interesting, and it is leading somewhere, because like your clients, they don't even know that they have this knowledge. They're not going through life saying, I have the secrets of the universe. I know about the red crystal, which, hey, the red crystal comes up a lot. There's definitely something there. But the cool thing about it is, you get them, in your couch or wherever you're doing your regression, and they're just going in blind. They're like, I don't know if anything's even going to come out. And the next thing you know, boom, they're spilling these just mind-blowing secrets of the universe. And then you find out, oh my God, this is connected to this. This is connected to this. You're like, it's like those CSI, those detectives, and they have all the board with all the wire and all the lines going everywhere. They're trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, there really is this grand puzzle that we're trying to put together. But it seems like these people are, like, you have an open sign on. You're like, I have this ability, I have this gift, and these people are drawn to you in all these different ways because they don't even know it, but subconsciously they're being guided by their higher self to find someone like you and get this information out because it's all part of this bigger puzzle. So how crazy is that?
Oh, it's so funny. It's so crazy for me because, like, I had this client just came in for his session, and then he says, Merlin is here. And Merlin says that you asked for him. Yes, he did. And then Merlin just starts sharing all this information that I was really curious about. And it's just, how would this guy know? How does, it's really interesting. It's just so funny because I think this happens to everyone. Like, everyone's just involved in their own game. And it's really interesting. The unseen world totally knows what we're looking for, what we're searching for. And they give us, the amount of clues that we're ready for. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it seems they're doing it in like kind of a coordinated way. Like they don't feel, rushed. It doesn't seem like there's this like sense of, I mean, there's an urgency in a sense, but not like an emergency. It seems like there's, they're guiding us in this kind of methodical way. Like, okay, now you're going to go and have lunch here, and then you're going to just, so happen to run into this person who's going to know a person who's going to kind of lead to this regression session that you have. It seems like it happens in such a natural, organic way to where you would never question it. But then when you look back down the road, you're like, holy cow, I totally ran into that person because I was supposed to have this session with Sarah, kind of a deal. And it always seems to be this like orchestrated thing, but you don't know it at the time, so we're just living our lives unaware that there's this greater architecture going on and kind of guiding us. And there's like very subtle ways. It's not like grabbing you and forcing you to go over here. It's just guiding you subtly.
It makes life really exciting, honestly, because everybody you meet for a reason. They bring something to the puzzle. Nothing is by accident. It's really interesting. I mean, as I always ask the higher self about like anger. I mean, what about anger and about like people have so much trauma? I mean, why do we have so much trauma? It's really hard. And the higher self is always saying that humans like hold on to their trauma because they like to have something to talk about, that we actually like talk about our trauma, reinforcing it like it's a story we keep telling ourselves as if it defines ourselves, and that they don't, we're really like the masters of our own limitation, that the higher self keeps saying, what we're supposed to do is to learn from it and then let it go, release it from our stories. And we're so powerful that we can create for ourselves new stories, and that we don't even realize that we can do that. We think if we have this trauma, we need to keep talking about it, reinforcing it for the rest of our lives. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to really make a conscious decision to let it go. And like anger, it serves a purpose too. It helps us realize where we get triggered. But most of the time, the higher self has said anger is really our ego. That if we really look deeply into why we're angry, most of the time it'll lead us to where our ego was actually hurt. And so when we can start to really use this to our advantage and start to realize, okay, I need to release this, then that can really help us. And to understand that, this is a game, and so there's good and bad, forces. But the bad forces are not actually even really that bad. I started to understand that. Like even demons and the really negative energy that we have on this realm, it's not really what we've thought it was all this time. It's actually a buffering system because humans are God playing these small roles. Humans could actually spiral and destroy the whole population. So there needs to be a buffering system for our negativity. And those are demons. Demons, the job of a demon and the job of a like Lucifer is actually to guard the lower realms. They're very highly advanced spiritual beings that have lowered their vibration so much to be a guard and buffer for our humans' negative tendencies and emotions. And when you're summoning demons and you think that the demon is creating all these negative effects, most of the time it's actually the human creating the negative effect because the human is so powerful. They think that it's the demon, but it's actually themselves, which is really fascinating. It makes you wonder. It's like, what am I creating today? It's just like when I ask the higher self, why do we all get sick? Why do, like, if we're so powerful, like, I want to feel really good all the time. I don't want a headache. And the higher self said, well, you have to understand that every time you get something or you have something, you created it. You did that to yourself. We do this to ourselves. We make ourselves sick all the
Yeah.
time. And it's
Wow.
really, I know.
I,
I
I
know.
mean, that's such a mind blower because, like, basically what you're saying, it makes so much sense. I mean, because, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be basically transmuted. So if humans, and there's 8 billion of us, we have a lot of negative energy, it has to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, it has to be kind of buffered from the rest of the greater universe and funneled somewhere. So we funnel it into these, basically what you would call like an egregor, like a tulpa, like a thought form, which, we would call demons or Satan or whatever you want to call it. And it's basically a way to funnel this negative energy into a safe place, a lower density to where it can't hurt the higher densities, but we're feeding it, like we're giving it the fuel. So if people are like, okay, well, how do you get rid of demons? How do you get rid of, any of these negative entities? Stop feeding them fuel. Stop, if you stop watering a plant, it will die, right? So it seems like they're there out of necessity because
Yeah.
we're putting off all this negative energy. So we're keeping them necessary. But if we raised our vibration and started focusing more on positive things, then they wouldn't be necessary and they might just disappear because it seems like they're playing a role and we're giving them purpose right now with all of our negativity. We're reinforcing their necessity, so like, people have asked me before, is loosh a thing and are there lower vibrational entities that feed off of our loosh being like negative energy? I'm like, I don't know. Possibly, probably. So, okay, well, what do I do about that? Stop giving it to them. Stop putting off negative. If there's something that's a parasite off of negative energy, then all they want to do is eat, right? They're looking for that as a food source or a fuel. So stop giving it to them. And at the end of the day, if we stop focusing on negative things and fears and these kinds of things and trauma, then it'll start to fade away. And then, your attention will go to better, higher places and these more angelic realms, it seems. And then the negative realms, at a certain point, maybe they don't even need to exist, and these things have served their role and they go away.
It's really interesting. And you can see how this works because your mind is an investigator. It's a scientist. So it will prove everything you believe to be true. So if you want to see this happen, just try out a new belief and your mind will prove it and your reality will prove it to be true when you start to align your belief system with it. Like if I set out to believe, I believe that everything is working for me and I'm aligning with that belief system and I'm investigating, everything works out for me. Then I will notice that everything is working out for me and it will trigger an effect because we're also extremely powerful. I had this one client who, like, she remembered when she was younger that her sheets would rip in the middle of the night, like literally down the middle. And so she thought she was being attacked by a demonic entity. And she also noticed like strange poltergeist activity in her house. So when I regressed her and brought her really deep under, she found out that it was like the energy she was producing that was creating all this poltergeist like effects. It was actually her energy that was like turning off and on the light switches, and that she was actually out of anger ripping the sheets. It's really interesting what the energy that you're producing can do, especially when you go into your dream time, because then your physical body is relaxed. And sometimes if you haven't released some of this energy, it can actually start like affecting the energy of your house. So, to like really shake out that energy, release it by journaling or whatever method you do, can really help when it comes to poltergeist activity, believe it or not.
And that it makes so much sense because so many of these things seem to happen around sleep time. That's when a lot of poltergeist activity, shadow beings, and weird noises and things like that usually is around the time you're going to bed, it seems. And I think, like you touched on something very important, that we create much of our reality, probably all of our reality for the most part, and we like to give away, humans, for whatever reason, this power to other things. Like, we don't like to claim that. We don't like to think that we're that powerful. So when something bad happens, instead of saying, "Oh, I probably did that," then we create these external sources, like, "Oh, I didn't do that. A demon did it, or a ghost did, or an alien did it," right? And then when something good happens, we're like, "Oh, I didn't do that. God did it, or something else did it." Like, we don't take responsibility for the fact that A, we're rendering and creating most of our reality, and B, we're really freaking powerful, and that's a good thing. But instead, we give that power away. And I think if we could just harness that and say, "You know what? I'm going to take responsibility," because taking responsibility means that you have to own up to all the things you've done wrong. And when you do something bad or something bad happens, you have to take responsibility and say, "Hey, you know what? That's probably because of me. My bad. I'm going to learn and grow from that." But it's easier to say, "Nope, the world's evil and there's demons out there. They did it," right? It's easier. But I think that when you take that responsibility, like everything you're saying, then you get to change your reality. You can actually change it. You can say, "You know what? From now on, only good things are going to happen to me. And if something bad happens, I probably had some role in it. I'll learn, I'll grow from it, and I'll evolve and move on. No big deal." But you'll see your whole reality and your whole life shift once you take responsibility and understand what you've been saying, which is, our consciousness creates our reality, and we're responsible for the good and the bad things. Even the crazy paranormal things, a lot of that seems to be, coming from us.
Even extraterrestrial contact, I find really is interesting, because I asked the higher consciousness, like, how come some people connect with a certain group of extraterrestrials and other people don't? And what they said was really, really mind blowing to me. They said that you are connecting with the level of frequency that you are. So if you have a negative, extraterrestrial visit you or whatever, that's because that is the frequency that you're residing on, that you're experiencing yourself in another version of yourself when you're having this contact, in a sense. So there is no real other, it's just other yous. So when you're vibrating at a certain frequency, you're going to attract yourself from that frequency, is basically how they explained it. And so it all depends on you and your level of spiritual growth.
Like attracts like, right? I mean, it's such an important lesson. I mean, what you put out is what you're going to attract in all aspects of life. And I think it's very telling. I mean, I know in my own life, like, as I have shifted my, vibration over the years, certain things have just fallen off. I mean, there's people that I don't see anymore, even though I know they live right around the corner from me. It's almost like you turn your station to a different channel, and new stuff comes in, but old stuff goes away, and it's really wild, and you really can, shift. So when it comes to extraterrestrials and paranormal type things, I guess it follows the same pattern, that you're attracting, like-minded and like vibrational things at a physical level and at a non-physical spiritual level. So, if people...
It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong, though, if you do have a negative experience. It's just a indicator for growth and for shadow work, basically. And shadow work is very important when it comes to things like that. Like, if you are experiencing something negative like that, it's pointing to something within yourself that needs to be released, is basically what the lesson behind that is, according to the higher self.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, like say I always go back to video games just because it makes sense to me. But when you're playing a video game and there's a bad guy in the game, right? The game's full of bad guys. But when a bad guy comes at you, you don't feel like the victim. You're not like, "Oh my God, why is this guy trying to hurt me?" You're like, "No, he's a bad guy. Of course, he's doing bad guy things. I'm supposed to learn how to navigate this, get around it, defeat the bad guy, and you see it as like a challenge. It's so I look at life the same way. If something very negative happens to me, I don't think about it as I'm negative, so obviously I attracted something negative. I look at it like, okay, this is a challenge. There's something this thing is teaching me. There's something I'm supposed to learn from this. So, I mean, great point that you brought up. If something negative happens or if you're visited by a negative entity, don't think that that's because it's a reflection of you and you're some terrible person and you attracted this. Think about it more like it's some sort of a challenge or a lesson that your higher self has given you or the universe has given you. There's something you're supposed to learn from this experience. And if it keeps happening, recurring, then that means you're just obviously not learning your lesson. So it has to keep happening. And once you figure it out, you decode it, you learn your lesson, then it probably won't happen anymore.
That's so true. That's awesome.
I love how many times in this conversation you've said, it blew my mind, or I've said, it blew my mind. I mean, like, I thought it's funny. I wrote down this piece of paper, ask Sarah, what's the one like craziest thing that she's experienced through all this? And it's like, oh my God, how could you even put your finger on one? It's like asking somebody their favorite movie, it's impossible. So, but that's a great, segue to, what I want to end on. I know we're running out of time here. You have a very exciting thing happening today because you're just full of excitement. I mean, your life is so fun just to watch all of your adventures. And obviously this is all taking you somewhere. This is building, putting together this grand puzzle like we talked about. But why don't you tell our audience, what you're up to, closing out 2024. I know you've had an amazing year this year. I think 2025 for you, I mean, get ready, world. Sarah Breskman Cosme is going to be everywhere in a good way. So why don't you tell people just a few of the exciting things you have coming up?
My gosh. Well, in just 1 month, I'm going to have an online event so that people can actually ask questions of one of my really, really good hypnosis subjects. One of my subjects that I use for my books and information. She's incredibly clear when she's under hypnosis, and I can talk directly to the higher consciousness. So I'm giving people a chance to ask their questions that I will ask my client when she's under hypnosis. I'm doing that December 18th. And then this year I'm speaking at Conscious Life Expo, which is so fun. It's one of my favorite events. I love all the speakers and all the people that go. But one of the coolest things for me at the Conscious Life Expo are all the vendors, because they have all the newest gadgets. You can experience what it's like to be in a toroidal field. It's really super cool. I love the Conscious Life Expo. It's so much fun. And I'll be on George Norrie's panel this year. On Monday, I don't know when this comes out, but on the 25th, I'll be on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. And I am speaking at the Sedona Ascension Retreat. And oh my gosh, I will be on the same panel as Billy Carson this year, which is cool because I think Billy Carson is really cool. And Robert Grant will also be on my panel. This will be really interesting. And that is at March 14th. Then on March 16th, I'll be speaking at Gaia-Sphere, which is my first time speaking at Gaia-Sphere, actually. And I'm really excited. I don't know what to expect yet, but everybody tells me that it's super fun. And I have a new interview coming out with Regina Meredith on Gaia TV in a couple months. And look for my new book, which should be out hopefully sooner than later. Hopefully it will be available on Amazon. Right now, you can't get my Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis on paperback in Amazon right now. I know. There are many speculated reasons for that. But hopefully it will come back soon.
We won't say any keywords here that might get us in the same trouble as the book, but this book is amazing and the world needs to read it. But yeah, there's a few words that were mentioned in it that I guess are words that you're not allowed to mention anymore. But I would encourage everybody to find any way you can this amazing book, and it should be coming back to Amazon very soon. And
Yeah.
you have so many amazing things happening in your life that you forgot about one of the most amazing, which is you have these trips to Egypt that
Yeah.
you do that are unlike anyone else's trip. So if anyone out there, I'll let Sarah tell us more. If anyone out there is curious about going to Egypt and wants to see it in the most complete, most life-changing, mind-blowing way. Sarah's Egypt tours are just incredible. Tell us a little bit about that.
My gosh, it's so amazing for me. I absolutely love it. I feel like it's the fast track to ascension because we have all the private entries required to actually be able to touch and meditate at the Sphinx at sunrise, which is absolutely powerful and incredible. And we go to all the places and be there all by ourselves. Like the Great Pyramid, we have 2 full hours in the Great Pyramid that we have all to ourselves. And we do really deep meditations in these places. And we get to access all these places that are off limits to the general public. We even go underneath Cairo to experience what it feels like to be in this place called the Osiris Shaft, which was very hidden from the public for a very long time. You need a special permit to go in there. And so I take the group in there and allow them to actually experience what it feels like to be underneath the earth in this place. It's this very sacred energy, and you can feel it when you're there because there's still a current of water flowing beneath there. And when you're inside the earth, it's a different energy and experience than when you're above the earth, which is why people use cave systems for many different things. But we stay at all the 5-star hotels, and it's just an experience like no other. I mean, you get to ride the camel through the desert. It's really incredible. I think there's only like 2 spots left for our May trip because 2 spots recently opened, but they're probably going to go pretty fast. And for our September 2025 trip, I believe there are 4 spots left. So if you want to go, book it quickly because they do end up booking up pretty fast. And we just put these available not that long ago. So if you are interested in coming with us, book it quickly. But what makes our trips different is that most people just go and hear a lot of information, which you do. You hear a lot of information, but a different type of information. This is information that I've received from the higher self, and I study these places that I take people to and find out how we can actually harness the temple and how we can actually, what kind of ceremony can we do in this place that would maximize the benefit of my group. So the higher self has told me different things to do and how to use these places. And we also do meditations, and I do past life regression for the people there so that they can really tune into their own memories, because it's really about each individual. I mean, it's great to hear information, but people really want to know how these places really can help them in their own spiritual growth. So so it would be awesome to see who is coming on this trip, because it's always a family by the end of the trip.
That's amazing. So even if you've been to Egypt before, guys out there, this is a way to see it in a totally different way. And I know that like last time Michael Sala was there, wasn't he? And I know you're becoming kind of like the regressionist to the stars. And so I'm super excited to see who you get to encounter this year, because I think you're just a magnet right now, attracting. So any big celebrity stars out there, if you want to explore your past lives, Sarah is the girl for it. So I think you're really putting together. I mean, you have these resources and you have this reach and you have this ability and this gift to do what you do, and you're able to, bring together all of these pieces of this cosmic puzzle, the average Joe to the super celebrity, and bring them together. But then you take it to the next level, because then you go to the places that you're learning about and you put your hands on it and you get inside there and you say, okay, all the things I've learned, all the things I've been told, how can I integrate this? How can I make this accessible and useful for the average person? And then you even bring people with you and say, hey guys, why don't y'all come with me? I mean, you really are the complete package and you're doing everything just perfectly. So I just can't wait to see what 2025 has in store for you and for the world. And I super appreciate you coming on the Alive and Kicking podcast today. And we'll put all in the show notes, guys. We'll put all of the links to her books and to her website. And these Egypt trips are going to book up super duper fast. So make sure, if you're interested, grab one of those. This thing coming up pretty shortly here, this online live regression you're doing, that sounds like a lot of fun, because you never know what's going to come through these things. So I would encourage everybody to get your tickets for that as well. and just follow Sarah along. Do you have any parting, kind of bits that you want to leave for humanity here, or just a kind of an inspirational message for the world, Sarah?
Really, what I would say is just everything you're searching for is really within yourself. It's like that saying that a lot of people say, but it's really, really true. Nothing is outside of yourself. Everything is an inward journey, really.
My God, such powerful words and such a great parting gift for everybody. So thank you for your time, Sarah. I know you have something exciting to get to, so thank you for making time for us. And thank you to the Alive Tribe. I'll see you all in the next episode. Peace.